Hi, this week at the Max Bar Show, we're at the movies again. And this time we're doing a theme episode, and it's all about going back to school. Here in my area, kids already started school yesterday. People are going back to work. Summer is winding down, which means fall is around the corner, and including my favorite holiday season, Halloween. So what better way to start off the fall season than celebrating movies involving school of some sort. And I think the selection we got this week all have their merits, and we will dive right in with the first movie. It stars Lindsay Lohan, Rachel McAdams, and it was written by Tina Fey, based on her own experiences as a young lady. And the movie I'm talking about is Mean Girls. Now, truth be told, this movie is not on my radar. It would not be on my radar. But I took out a fantastic, exotic lady on a date, and she really wanted to see this movie. And for her, I know it connected in many ways, and I enjoyed the fact that she was talking throughout the film and gave me some insights that otherwise probably went over my head. But that being said, after I saw the movie, I gotta say this Mean Girls will definitely be a timeless classic. I think it has a lot of merit. I think there's a lot of themes in there that do carry over. I do have a sister, and I remember when we were growing up together, the things that she was going through, stories she would tell, or sometimes at random, she would just find me and my brother and just complain about her day. And after watching this movie, it actually kind of poured a little insight. So let's kind of dive right in briefly. So Lindsay Lohan, she is a fish out of water. When she was younger, she grew up in a more sheltered environment, and her parents moved to a new city and decided to take her out of private homeschooling and put her into a public school. So when she does that, she realizes that book smarts are one thing, but learning how to navigate the complex social network or webs of dealing with people is a lot more complicated and difficult than learning algebra or syntax. So, I mean, I can kind of relate to a little bit being that new person and then trying to fit in, and you don't know anybody. But naturally, she, based on her personality and her character, she makes friends with the fringe of the high school society. And I mean fringe, she makes a friend with a young lady who is an artist. She's very introverted, yet she's outspoken. I could totally relate to that. So Lindsay Lohan, she's trying to make friends at school, and then eventually she gets the attention of Rachel McAdams and her little clique of, Mean Girls. And they decided, you know what, you don't belong over there. You should be sitting with us. So Lindsay Lohan's character is divided whether she stays with her friends that she met at the beginning of school, or does she take advantage and become one of the more popular girls. I mean, to her, she's curious about that kind of social dynamic. And in many ways, you can kind of understand that whether you have kids or not, you understand that age in high school, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You're still developing your personality, your character. So it's natural to want to go out and try new things. And so you can't really blame her for giving it a try. But Lindsay Lohan finds out pretty fast that Rachel McAdams definitely has an overbearing personality that can overtake her. So she's trying to find that thin line of staying true to herself while weaving her way throughout the high school experience. There's a lot of parts of the film that I think are totally fetch. And if you know, you know. But Lacey Chabert plays the best friend of Rachel McAdams, and she tries so hard to get that word into the popular slang. And it's a funny scene where Rachel McAdams just loses it. But I do think this movie is pretty fetch. One thing I'll also say too is that there's a scene in the second act where the young ladies are talking to each other over the telephone. And at one moment, they're being supportive to one another. And then they talk to a different friend and they talk trash about that first person. I mean, it was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of, I'll put it this way, Rachel McAdams and her group, they all wear a different mask. And in many ways, it's true to life. I mean, even if some of us that work out there in the corporate world understand, you have your public face, you have your office face, you got your different faces depending on what you're doing. And that's just totally natural, but it's funny when you see it here because you don't realize that, you know, even at a young age, people do that too. And then that's a skill you carry on into the real world. But either way, I do think this movie has a lot of heart. I mean, there are scenes there that you kind of punches in the gut. You're like, you know, why'd you say that? Why'd you do that? But by the end of the movie, Lindsay Lohan does grow, and she does stay true to herself, and she embraces her new experiences, and she decides to be the wonderful person that she will turn out to be at the end. So my first impressions and my rating for Mean Girls, I think it's a classic. I think this is a movie that people can share with their kids or with their friends and families for generations to come. So for that, I'm going to give Mean Girls 4.5 stars out of 5. It's definitely worth a watch. You know, if you're a girl dad, definitely sit down with your daughter and take a look at it. Even if you're not, if you're just curious about life in high school back then, take a look. I mean, this movie takes place in the late 90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, to me, it's still very relevant, and that's what makes it timeless. It doesn't really matter if this movie was set in the early 80s or the mid 2010s. I mean, I think if you sit down and watch it, you'll see it definitely encompasses, it crosses boundaries, crosses decades, crosses generations. So that's one of the reasons why I think this movie will be considered a classic film for years to come. All right, so now we're going to take a bit of a pivot here, and we're going to go to the 1980s for this next film. Now, this one, definitely, I can imagine a lot of Gen X are probably going to be upset with what I'm about to talk about. So either you like this movie or you don't. But it's hard to argue that it's not a classic. And I'm talking about The Breakfast Club. And this one here has the who's who of the Brat Pack. You got your Molly Ringwald, Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez, Judd Nelson plays the bad boy, John Bender, and Ali Sheedy. I have no idea who her character is supposed to be. But yeah, and so it's basically a movie about, it takes place at some high school in Chicago. It's on a Saturday, and you got all these delinquents. You got like 5 kids coming in on a Saturday to do detention, which I had no idea was a thing. I mean, I didn't go to high school in the 80s. I went to high school late in the 90s. So usually detention was always held during the week because, hell, man, even teachers wanted the weekend off. So the assistant principal, he has to go babysit his kids on a Saturday. So he's rightfully grumpy. And you got these 5 little shits that come in. And for one reason or another, they're all there, and they all have to pretty much spend the entire Saturday at school. So the principal, being naturally pissed off, tells these students they have to write a paper telling him who they think they are. So now, in respects, these are 5 students from different parts of life, different social groups. For example, Anthony Michael Hall is the nerd. Judd Nelson is the troublemaker. Emilio Estevez is the jock. Molly Ringwald is the princess, and Ali Sheedy is the quiet, strange lady. I wouldn't really call her a goth, just maybe like a pre-goth, or just an introvert who prefers to be left alone. I mean, I don't know, but either way, the movie frames it like these 5 people will never talk to each other in the normal course of school, which is true. But in this film, since they're all locked together in the library, they get a chance to actually interact with one another. They talk about themselves or the reasons why they got detention in the first place. There's a lot of unpacking of social pressures from family, from high school culture. So in many ways, it's kind of like a character study. So you got like 5 different people in one location, in one set, and that's the heart of the movie. They talk about their their experiences. They learn from one another. They get on each other's nerves. But the one thing I kind of found irritating was, the John Bender character, he tries to be like this rebel, but man, he's a punk ass bitch. When I went to high school, someone like that there with that kind of attitude and that kind of reputation of always screwing up and going to detention, his dumb ass would have found his way to alternative school. Or he would have been with a bunch of other students just like him, if not worse. And he definitely will be eating knuckle sandwiches and humble pie all the time. But I mean, I get it. That's where I kind of consider this more like a comedy fantasy, because there's no way, based what we learned about him in the film, he would have lasted that long in regular school. That principal would have bounced his ass out and shipped him off to that other little school somewhere. I'm pretty sure they got plenty of those in Chicago back then in the 80s. Those little poor buildings where they shove all the bad kids. Hey, not that I know from experience. Not that I know. But I'm just telling you, yeah, I mean, I totally get it. They're not trying to be realistic. They're just trying to tell you a story. So, in my own biased opinion, I do think this movie is kind of overrated. I do find it very dry. I don't find it very exciting. It makes you feel like you're actually in detention yourself. And you got to deal with these insufferable people. And there's a scene where Anthony Michael Hall had like a breakdown because he feels like he's under pressure to get straight A's, and when he gets a B or something, he loses it. I mean, I understand what they're trying to go with, but truth be told, it was really kind of hard to like connect, and it just kind of lost my patience. So by the end of the film, you're just like glad that it's over. You feel like you spent a whole Saturday in detention with these people. And one thing I won't mention, Molly Ringwald correctly points out, and what I like to think happened afterwards was, she pointed out towards the end that when Monday comes around and they all go back to their regular classes, their regular schedules, they will not see or talk to each other ever again. And I think that's what happened. Like, they had that one Saturday because they were in detention. They all open up and talk to each other, and then Monday morning they all run into each other, if by happenstance, and they'll be like, "Hey, who are you? I don't know you. Get out of here." So, but anyway, my own opinion aside, yes, this movie is pretty good. I do think some of the themes here do carry over, just like our previous film. So I'm going to be a little fair here, but I am going to still put on my personal rating on this. I'm going to give The Breakfast Club here 4 stars out of 5. It's not great. It's not bad. It is boring sometimes. I found the characters to be insufferable, but I guess that's the whole point, right? Because it's supposed to be high school students. And while I didn't see myself like that back then, I'm sure my mom probably has a different opinion, But she probably told everybody I was a real loud troublemaker, or whenever I got quiet, she knew I was up to something or hiding something. So if she watches this video, you were right, Mom. You were right. So now we cannot talk about going back to school without talking about the namesake movie of the season. And this one here is one of my personal favorites. It's a real joy, and I really do hope there will be a 4K version of this. Even though if it did ever have one, it's fine. And I'm talking about the 1986 classic Back to School, starring Rodney Dangerfield, Sally Kellerman, and Keith Gordon. And there's also appearances by Burt Young of the Rocky movies. He played Paulie. And a little-known actor. He plays a supporting character. You may have heard of him now. Robert Downey Jr. That's right. So the story takes place, and the main character is played by Rodney Dangerfield. He plays Thornton Mellon. He's a man who always struggled with school, but he became a very successful self-made millionaire. So Thornton Mellon, he operates a clothing store called Tall and Fat, and his clientele are people who are large, whether in height or in stature, and he's very successful. And he has a son, played by Keith Gordon, named Jason. Jason's away at school. And so before the film starts, Thornton Mellon's first wife had passed on. That's Jason's mother. And he remarried a second wife who pretty much just uses him for his money. And she's played by the lovely Adrienne Barbeau. And in the first act, Thornton Mellon we see he's dealing with his company. He's dealing with his unhappy second marriage. And him and his son, Jason, they do love each other, but you can see they have a bit of a disconnect because of the second wife. So once Thornton Mellon unpacks the toxic second wife, he decides he wants to repair his relationship with his son. So him and his butler slash assistant slash bodyguard, Burt Young, jump in the limo and they drive up to Grand Lakes University where his son Jason is a student. And Thornton Mellon finds out his son, but also has been holding back because of the disconnect. And we find out that Jason is, he's not so much struggling in school, but he's not happy. He's suffering from self-esteem and confidence issues. He's not happy that he only has the one friend, but his one friend is Robert Downey Jr., and he is a delight in this film. Robert Downey Jr. plays a guy named Derek Lutz, and he is a hoot. He's great. He's only in the movie a few minutes, but every time he comes in, something is going to happen. So Rodney Dangerfield and his son, Keith Gordon, they have a conversation, and like any parent, he's trying to encourage his son to stick through the program, to stay in college. That will be very important. Jason Mellon correctly points out that it's easy for him to say that because he doesn't have to go through the experience. And that's when Thornton Mellon decides, you know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to do this with you. So if you got to go to school, I'm going to go to school. And thus our journey begins. So while the heart of the movie is really about a father and son reconnecting, and they're reconnecting and they're having a shared experience of going through college, of dealing with professors and assignments and the social aspects. And as the film progresses, we see that Thornton Mellon loves being the party college boy, but he's not a big fan of actually going to class and studying, writing reports, taking exams. Where Jason, he now finds his confidence. He finally gets enough nerve to ask out his crush. He tries out again for the diving team, and this time he makes it. So you see that that's the heart of the film. It's a father and son reconnecting. And as they're going through school, they find out a lot about each other and of themselves. But there's also some challenges. This movie also has a bully, played by none other than William Zabka of Karate Kid, Cobra Kai fame. I mean, I swear, if there was a movie set somewhere in school, whether it's high school or college, and you needed a jerk, this was the guy you call. Because he was Johnny Lawrence in the Karate Kid. He was a guy named Greg in that movie, Just One of the Guys. So, I mean, you got to own it. I mean, he does a great job, but he's not as intense like his other roles. Here, yes, he's a bit of a bully, and he does cause a rift between Thornton and Jason, because he puts in Jason's head that his dad is using his money and connections to help him out, that Jason didn't really earn his spot in the team. And it takes a nice conversation from Burt Young to kind of set Jason Mellon straight. Unfortunately for Thornton Mellon, he does cause his own problems. He actually does hire people to write his reports, and when he turns his work in, the dean of business rightly calls him out on it. And while it's played up for laughs, we gotta look at it like, dude, man, you cheated. They should definitely kick you out for that. But since it's a movie, they give Thornton Mellon a chance to actually prove he actually earned the knowledge for himself and that he didn't cheat. So that's like the crisis of the film. He has to either pass his exams or get thrown out. And so there's the standard montage of him going through all the effort to study. But once Thornton Mellon starts to put in the work, he starts to realize the value. And he starts to realize that all the things he was telling his son are true, do make sense, but you got to put in the work. You can't take a shortcut here. So, well, I know in business you can delegate authority or delegate tasks, but when it comes to studying and being a student, you can't do that. Either you do the work or you don't. But overall, Back to School, it's a charming movie. I do think it's timeless. I mean, yes, there's some things that fashion and music and slang that definitely belong in the 80s, but overall, it has a lot of heart. It's very entertaining, and the best way I look at this movie, yes, it's a nice picture. Father and son reconnecting while they happen to be at school, but they don't really beat you over the head with the academics. The characters are all the charm there. So I do recommend this. I give Back to School 4.5 stars out of 5. Okay, so let's recap this week's episodes going back to school. So we started off strong with Mean Girls. Lindsay Lohan and Rachel McAdams, they definitely they're tremendous in this film. It's a delight to watch. If this movie does come across my path on streaming or on TV or something, I will definitely stop to watch it again. And I do have a partner in crime, and she's always willing to go down and watch movies with me, whether it's, as long as it's not all action movies, she's willing to go and watch movies with me. And I know this is one of her favorites as well. So Mean Girls, 4.5 stars out of 5. The Breakfast Club, I do things in the overrated 80s gym, but I mean, I gotta admit, it does have its moments, it does have its strengths, but I just found everybody insufferable. I just couldn't, I don't need to see it again, but if you're curious, go check it out, and I think you will enjoy it. But I am gonna give this 4 stars out of 5. And finally, we wrap it up with my favorite, Back to School. It's almost perfect, not quite there. It does have its issues, but nothing that comes to mind that would totally derail the movie. But I gotta call it like I see it. It's really about a father and son reconnecting. The back to school portion there does take, it's not forefront, but it is very present. So I give this one also 4.5 stars out of 5. All right, so that will do it for this week here at Max at the Movies. I'm your host, Max Varro, and as always, just don't take my word for it. Go check it out for yourself.